Lewis Hamilton finally finished his first race of the season in the last weekend in the Australian Grand Prix. Haas with a very strong start to the season, seeing both Mick Schumacher and rookie teammate Gary Owen finishing in the points consistently to start the first three races, and Red Bull has won every race so far this season with both Verstappen and Perez. Are they unstoppable? We're about to find out here today. Welcome back, everybody, to a brand new episode of the F1 My Team, or My Driver career mode, whatever the heck you want to call it. Not my team, but we are nonetheless getting ready to tackle the Imola Grand Prix, fresh off of a disappointment in Australia where we had a engine component fail and take us out of that Grand Prix way too early. So we got some work to do coming into Imola here, where we also see our first sprint race of the season. So a bit of a lengthier episode on the way here, but very excited for Imola. I'm a big fan of this circuit. I almost consider it to be like a wide open Monaco, because this is has similarities. There's no room for error in Monaco. There's no room for error in Imola. It is, you make a mistake in Imola and you are sailing it off the track towards a barrier, whatever. So a lot of tracks have a little bit more forgiveness than Imola does. So I really enjoy coming to Imola here now, and I was very excited for this race. It's really a unique circuit here. There's not many like it that have these kind of characteristics, especially right through here, this section with the sweeping left-hander. Then you go downhill through the double right-hander, you go back up through the elevation into the chicane. I just really enjoy coming here now, and so glad that F1 has returned to this circuit in the last few years, ever since the pandemic now. As you can see, practice wasn't all smooth. I actually go for a bit of a spin there in the grass as rain started to fall, and that was on the qualifying pace program, but nonetheless, I was pretty happy with how I was feeling in the car. We were P2 on the board in practice, but as usual, you take practice, the leaderboard, with a grain of salt, so I was most focused on qualifying here now, as we're continuing to try and get some upgrades here. We don't really have any upgrades coming into Imola, so we're kind of bringing what we had in Australia to Imola once again. So hopefully going into Miami or Spain in the Spanish Grand Prix, we're going to be able to bring a monumental upgrade package that could really elevate us, because we were doing pretty good. We were in the midfield, and then we kind of dropped down a little bit on the R&D, and we're trying to get that big push back to the midfield again so we can be a legitimate competitor. But here we are in Q1, putting in our lap times and hoping, of course, to advance at least into Q2. That's always a goal, is to go for Q2, not only for myself, but for our teammate of Mick Schumacher as well, who's been doing so well to start this season here, and we'll talk about that a little bit later on in the episode for the actual Grand Prix after the sprint race here. But this is my lap late on here, actually, in Q1. So we were P13, and we dropped down to P15, but we find about another 3.5 tenths of a second, and that would elevate us up into P11, which would advance us into Q2. And fortunately, we were not the only Haas to advance, because our teammate Mick Schumacher, about a little less than a tenth behind, advances as well in P14. You see Bottas, Stroll, Gasly, Sebastian Vettel, and Nicholas Latifi all eliminated. So a bit surprised to see Pierre Gasly out in Q1, as we would focus now on Q2. And you can see the cloud cover now taking over the track. But my first lap was actually set on the same set of tires that I advanced into Q2 with, so I wasn't expecting much, but I actually beat Mick's time. He was down at P15, I was P14. My last lap here in Q2, it was a bit of a sloppy lap here, but we had found a little bit of time here so far, about 2 to 3 tenths of a second improvement in the first half of the lap, and then we got close to about half a second, very aggressive on track limits through the chicane, nearly too aggressive, and got invalidated on the strict level, but we were okay. So we found about right around half a second as we came through, opening the DRS, crossing the line, and we actually go P11 again, so we will officially start P11 for the sprint race. We know those sprint races is a whole different dynamic. It can bring a lot of chaos, but unfortunately our teammate Mick Schumacher all the way down to P15, and again we out-qualify our teammate of Mick Schumacher. So we're 4-0 in qualifying, but we'll see what happens in the sprint race. Let's head to the grid.
Welcome to today's sprint. This is shaping up to be another fantastic weekend. Let's run you through the driver grid order for today's exciting sprint. World champion Max Verstappen starts from pole position. and it's Charles Leclerc in P2. Looking at the rest of today's grid, we have Sainz, Russell, and Sir Lewis Hamilton, and Perez, Norris, Fernando Alonso, Ricciardo, and Guan Yu Zhou, Golden Boy, Ocon, Yuki Tsunoda, and Albon, Mick Schumacher, Bottas, Lance Stroll, and Pierre Gasly, Vettel, and Nicholas Latifi. And with preparations almost complete, let's head trackside for today's sprint.
Ready to go, lights out. Very simple strategy. Starting on the mediums, let's head into the formation lap.
Here we go then. The formation lap is underway ahead of today's sprint. We're almost ready to start the sprint as the cars take their positions on the grid, with the drivers and teams making their final preparations.
Thank you everybody for the hard work this weekend so far. Great starting position for the sprint race. So let's see if we can capitalize on it and get a good start for the actual Grand Prix. We're ready then to go lights out here in the sprint race from Imola now to set ourselves up for the starting position for where we will actually start the Grand Prix in here now, as we're going to be just behind fellow rookie of Zhou Guan Yu, as we are going to be fighting for the Rookie of the Year this season. Right now, Zhou has a bit of the upper hand currently here as we are officially ready to get rolling here in Imola. Now, our teammate Mick Schumacher a few rows behind us now, as it's going to be 5 red lights. Max Verstappen's going to lead, though, to the lights out, and we are underway from Imola. And you can see it's not a great start for, actually, that is Charles Leclerc, who's a bit slow off the grid, and that's going to open the door wide open for Carlos Sainz. But hold on, the two Ferraris are going to be wheel to wheel into turn 1. A little bit of tussling, see some winglets flying in the background. I'm side by side with Valtteri Bottas. We're making contact. We've gone around with Valtteri Bottas, and that is not going to result in a safety car, so we're going to lose a ton of time. Instant replay right there. You see the contact there, and it almost looked like I got caught napping and I just kind of forgot to turn, but Bottas might have as well been kind of cutting into the corner. That wasn't the only thing that happened. Mick Schumacher actually drove into the back of me going down into turn 1 and lost his front wing, so a bit of a chaotic first lap that immediately resulted in us in the pit lane here behind our teammate Mick Schumacher, who's replacing his front wing, and actually I had a bit of a bad start, and that's why Schumacher was so close to me, and of course why he ran into the back of me and everything just went completely wrong. There's yellow flags in front of us. Sebastian Vettel actually has a mechanical failure, and he is going to be pulling out of the Grand Prix, or out of the sprint race at just the conclusion of lap 1 here now, as there was battles happening like crazy all around the circuit early on in the first couple of laps, but I was all by myself here, and it was the most boring sprint race for myself following the first lap chaos. So I just kind of put it into ride mode. I was 15 seconds behind Mick Schumacher. Carlos Sainz as well had found himself in the pit lane for a wing change. You can see a little bit later, lap 5, Valtteri Bottas has a bit of a run-in right there with the AlphaTauri as they were scrapping it out with Alex Albon, so Bottas had to come in a few moments later to get a new front wing, but that was it. Then Max Verstappen drove away 3.5 seconds away from Charles Leclerc and won the sprint race over Leclerc and Hamilton, and it was going to be Perez and Russell 4th and 5th, and I was coming through to cross the line in the 19th position. We only beat Sebastian Vettel, who of course retired at the end of the first and opening lap. So we had chaos, and then just as quick as the chaos was over, the race was over in the video because it was so boring. So B19 here in the sprint race, and it was all my own doing, of course, with just kind of, I don't even know, just falling asleep and kind of almost trying to straight line the corner, and obviously Bottas cut across. So we've got some work to do, not only for myself but Schumacher as well. Let's head to the grid for the Grand Prix.
Hello there and welcome back to Imola, home circuit of the Scuderia Ferrari. We expect to see a lot of local supporters wearing red today, and they've all turned out for what we're expecting will be a sensational event here at the Emilia-Romagna Grand Prix. 3.1 miles of track at Imola, featuring 19 turns, 9 to the right and 10 to the left. Remember that Imola differs from most other Formula One tracks as it's taken anti-clockwise. Let's hope nobody forgets that today. The exit from turn 18 will probably be the setup for many of today's overtakes, leading as it does into the longest straight on the circuit, and it's only DRS zone. Let's run you through the driver grid order for today's exciting race. Max Verstappen put in a fantastic lap yesterday, and he'll start from pole position, with Charles Leclerc alongside. Moving on to the rest of the grid, we have Hamilton, Perez, George Russell, and Norris. Fernando Alonso, Ricciardo, Ocon, and Guan Yu Zhou. Tsunoda, Albon, Pierre Gasly, and Stroll. Latifi, Bottas, Mick Schumacher, and Golden Boy. Sainz and Sebastian Vettel starts from the back of the grid. It's almost time for the lights to go out, so let's head down to the track where preparations are underway. It's race day yet again, and joining me for a chat is Anthony Davidson. And our racers are certainly in for a rough day today. What will you be watching out for as they head into turn 1?
Well, the start of the race is always one of the most nerve-wracking parts. You have to hope that everyone is able to get off to a clean start, and this is possibly the trickiest part of the entire race. So many drivers in such a small space, and finding your braking point into turn 1 as well. It's a testament to the driver's skill that there aren't more incidents.
Work needed to be done after the absolute massive mistake in the sprint race, starting from, P19 as we're ready to go.
The formation lap gets underway, and every driver will be looking to settle in for the race ahead, making sure that their car is ready for the battle once the lights go out. We're almost ready to start the race as the cars take their positions on the grid, with the drivers and teams making their final preparations.
All right, team, we know what we need to do. I made a big mistake in the sprint race. I'm going to make up for it today. Let's go get some points. There we are on the radio to the team, kind of reinforcing that, hey, we can pull this off. You know, it might have been everything that could have gone wrong in the first and opening lap of the sprint race. Well, it went wrong, but we can reverse that here and make up for that today, hopefully in Imola now, as we are going to grid up. Our teammate Mick Schumacher just in front of us. He has some work to do as well after running into the back of me in the first turn in the sprint race and tearing his front wing completely off. We actually have Carlos Sainz who took that grid penalty, so sorry, P18 is where we do start with Vettel at the back. Is this going to be, once again, 5 red lights in Imola? Max Verstappen, your sprint race winner, is going to lead us underway as Charles Leclerc gets a fantastic start, however, and blows the doors right off of a Formula 1 car that doesn't even have doors. Now, as you can see as well, Perez trying to put the attack around the outside of Verstappen, nearly some wheel-to-wheel contact. There's another winglet going flying, just like the sprint race in turn 1. Somebody's got some damage here in this main pack of cars. Not sure exactly who it was, but Leclerc with a big gap to work with right off the bat. But is he going to be able to defend over that Red Bull speed? I'm sure he'll be able to hold on for a few laps, but I'm sure it won't be too long until the Red Bulls are absolutely suffocating him with the just pure raw speed that they have currently now in the new Red Bull powertrains engines that we see in that Red Bull car. As you can see for myself, actually, I did lose one position on the start. That was to Carlos Sainz, who had a mega start. He's already gained multiple positions, and our teammate as well, Mick Schumacher, was able to gain multiple positions in the start. However, we did not gain any. A big stack up right there in the chicane. Schumacher actually forcing the issue on, I believe it was a Williams, and it stacked up everybody there as they tried to go side by side. So down into turn 1, lap 2, same situation. We got cars going side by side, and we have this just huge pack of cars, nearly contact with Bottas, but a big pack of cars right here that are all just slowing each other up and losing an incredible amount of time to the pack ahead. And you see Latifi throwing a bit of a defensive move on myself. We got the 2 Williams of him and Albon in front of us, but we're going to go alongside our fellow Canadian who's on the hard compound tires, both Williams teammates on the hard compound tires. We're going to pass him around the outside and complete the 16th position as we try to run down now Alex Albon into the chicane, who has a bit of a lockup, so he makes it easy for me. He goes wide. We take the position up into P15. We go. Schumacher and Sainz, they were continuing the battle, actually have some contact into turn 1 down on lap 3, so that would take the winglet on the left side off of Carlos Sainz's car, and that would result in him obviously having to come in to repair that. So at the conclusion of lap 3, he would be into the pit lane for a brand new front wing. So that moves us up to P14. We're up to 13th and 14th, Schumacher and myself, after starting in the last 2 rows here in this Grand Prix. An absolutely fantastic start to this Grand Prix for us. Leclerc would continue to lead the way as we would continue continue to try and run down our teammate Schumacher within DRS range now as yellow flags though ahead of us, and it's Daniel Ricciardo, the Australian, just on lap 5, already going to be out of the race there with a mechanical failure as things continued to develop here as Fernando Alonso sending one up the inside of George Russell and running him completely off the circuit and taking the position, and it wasn't over for George Russell. Here comes now Esteban Ocon, Fernando's teammate, around the outside. Does George learn from what just happened with Fernando? I don't think he does, because there goes Alonso ahead, but hold on a second. The British driver of George Russell is going to fight back here now, and here comes Lando Norris into the mix as well in the McLaren. Now, why is the Mercedes struggling so hard is really the real question here. Ocon gets ahead, but Russell's going to send one back up the inside nearly into the side pod of Esteban Ocon there. Now, is they're going to drag race here in Imola for a few moments now as they head uphill a little bit into the next left-hander, and Russell still is having an opportunity here to get the position, and yes, he does. In the background, Zhou Guanyu as well. He had gone wide, missed the corner. The battles continue for the lead. Now, Perez with DRS assistance is going to be able to pass Charles Leclerc, and the Australian Grand Prix winner looking to go back-to-back now, and there you see Esteban Ocon again with George Russell. This time, Russell makes it easy and decides he's not even going to attempt to make the corner and just completely misses it, runs off into the gravel, which is another spot for myself and Schumacher. We're up at a P11 and P12 here just by simply minding our own business. It has worked to absolute perfection here in Imola. Now, here I am, lap 9, actually, coming into the pit lane, so obviously on the soft compound tire, we are going to have to pit a little bit earlier than these drivers on the medium, so Schumacher will be in very soon as well, but a very simple strategy, the soft to hard compound tires, which is the first time we've done that this season. Usually it's been medium to hards in every other Grand Prix so far. However, a very solid pit stop for the team here now, so things are looking very good. It was only 2.4 seconds, so I think that might be our fastest pit stop of the season so far. As you can see, Carlos Sainz, he's on the soft compound tire. He's going to actually have to pit once more, so and it's probably not going to be long. It would be pretty soon actually here on lap 10, the conclusion of lap 10. He was already coming back into the pits, so maybe a bit of a strategy mishap there from Ferrari. Doesn't make a whole lot of sense there, but you can see Schumacher does come out in front of us, and we are now going to have the advantage of warmed up hard compound tires. Actually, for once, didn't struggle too much getting them warmed up and getting up to speed, and here we are, lap 13 with the DRS wide open, running down Schumacher. We're going to swing to the right hand side here. He's definitely using overtake. You can see he was not harvesting, the red light was not flashing, and he sends it into turn 1. I slow up early, do the little switchback on Schumacher, and up into P16 briefly we go. This is like a net P11 or so, but the battle was certainly not over with our teammate Mick Schumacher by any means. Here's Max Verstappen now passing Charles Leclerc, and I said, does the Ferrari have enough for that Red Bull power? It does not look like it. Verstappen closes the door right there as Lewis Hamilton's going to join the battle as well. He's having a way better Grand Prix so far than his teammate George Russell. The battle continues with Schumacher now, who sends one up my inside here into turn 1, and we run over the little turtles right there, I'll call it, from the NASCAR side of things, and you can see Schumacher shuts the door. A little bit of contact actually with them. He just stomped on the brakes in front of me and I ran into the back of him. I mean, I hope I don't have wing damage from that, but what the heck was he doing? Not a big fan of what Schumacher just did right there. Right now, yellow flags. It's Nicholas Latifi just stopping on the side of the track, and he would get back going, so he must have got ran off or maybe even spun out. Esteban Ocon now on lap 15 out of the Grand Prix. He had a mechanical failure, so many things are happening in this weekend here with the sprint race on the opening lap. Now in the Grand Prix, where myself and Schumacher are on the back of Lance Stroll, and you see all these cars exiting the pit lane. We're passing them all. Lando Norris, that moves us up into P10. Schumacher up the inside of Lance Stroll there into turn 1. This is perfect for us because now here we are entering ourselves into the battle. Who's going to give up first between Schumacher and Stroll? Obviously, I'm not going to be stupid and force a 3-wide move here, so we're just kind of riding and waiting to see what happens here and hoping that a hole or a door opens basically now, but that wasn't seeming to happen. And look at this, Norris, Russell right up my rear diffuser here, so having to be very careful. These two continue side by side now as they head down into the left-hander. None of them really want to give a centimeter between each other, but Schumacher looks like he might come out on top of this battle. I say that, but Stroll is still looking up the right side. You don't want to be side by side into there. He stomped on the brakes. I nearly ran into the back of him, and I had to go wide, so we lose a spot to Norris. We regain or get back onto the track and hold on into P11, but now Russell is trying to send one up my inside into the chicane. I simply say, no sir. I shut the door and try to continue on with my race, but things are crazy here now, as Norris would pass Stroll and actually would put the fight to Schumacher, so those two were starting to scrap it out, and that was again bringing us back into the battle here, and Russell actually found himself back into the pit lane. Not sure exactly why, but I think he might have had contact with Zhou Guanyu, I'm not sure, but nonetheless we passed Lance Stroll back up into P9 as Schumacher continues to fight with Lando Norris, as Mark comes over the radio, says we might have an issue and we're attempting to manage it. Well, there you have it.
Confirm it's an issue with our engine, I'm afraid.
An issue with the engine, so our race is not over, but it is certainly compromised. We have lost power in the engine, and it wasn't long until I would start to really feel the effects of that here, as these two, they are just continuously going at it here, and I am all over Schumacher, I'm all over Norris, so even though we're losing power, it's not mattering too much, because these two, I mean, they're going goblin mode here, as I was all over it, but then here comes Zhou Guanyu trying to put the fight to me as well. You can see I'm lacking that power now, and I have to throw a bit of a defensive move briefly on Zhou here now, as we would come through to lap 22. You can see the straight line speed, obviously, where I'm losing the time, but these two continue to battle it out so much that it would bring me right back into the mix here, but now, lap 22, same lap, I lose a bunch of grip there out of the hairpin, and that opens the door for Zhou to go around my right side and take the position, so we dropped down into P10, but it kind of only got worse from here. I just had no speed in a straight line anymore, and Carlos Sainz on fresh hard compound tires would run me down. He would pass me, move up into P10 in a way faster Ferrari, and I was hoping 3.6, 3.5 seconds would be enough to hold on. However, it was going to look pretty questionable here now. As you can see, Charles Leclerc absolutely bulldozed his way through there and moved back up into a podium place over Lewis Hamilton, as Perez continues to try and manage his gap to his teammate there of Max Verstappen here. Lap 25, still running P11, but this is where you see where we're losing the most time is on that straight line with the lack of power in this car, and I was losing so much. Lap 27, the battle's still continuing. Charles Leclerc, he's going to completely run off into turn 1, outbrakes himself and blows a podium away, and it's going to make it an easy podium for Lewis Hamilton. He even had to wait there for Hamilton's teammate of George Russell to go through here now, as we are now in defense mode because Alex Albon in the Williams on a fresh set of mediums has passed Stroll, has run me down, and has just blown right past me here, and showing that we are struggling so hard just trying to get to the end of this Grand Prix. And what could have been a day where we could have finally beat our teammate of Mick Schumacher is starting to unfortunately look like that's not going to happen, and we're going to be, what, 0-4 in the races to start the season against our teammate of Mick Schumacher, which is not how I had imagined starting my F1 career. I was hoping we could have at least been a 2-2 split by this point here, as this final lap got underway, and we're just holding on to P12 at this point. But as Sergio Perez coming through the final turn, he is going to win in Imola, which is going to be back-to-back Grand Prix victories. In Australia he won, and now Max Verstappen is going to come home just behind him in second place. Lewis Hamilton will get the final spot on the podium. Charles Leclerc, Fernando Alonso, and how about Pierre Gasly as well in P6? An absolutely superb effort from Pierre Gasly there in the AlphaTauri. And Mick Schumacher, our teammate, P7 in the Haas, as we're going to come through to cross the line in P12. Very disappointing, and there with the engine issue that just kind of compromised our race towards the end, and there wasn't a whole lot we could do about it, lacking that power all the way to the final moments there, unfortunately. Driver of the day, Carlos Sainz. Let's head to the podium for the post-race celebrations here in Imola.
And that's it then for the Emilia-Romagna Grand Prix. And what a sensational victory they've managed to pull off here. So, Anthony, what made the difference out there today? Red Bull put up an outstanding fight for the front position today, and it's great to see it paid off for them. They do so much for the sport that you can't help but be delighted by today's race win.
Always cool to see Sergio Perez on the top step of the podium, one of my favorite drivers in Formula 1. Obviously here in 2023, Sebastian Vettel retired, not my favorite anymore, or will always be my all-time favorite, but definitely Sergio, one of my main drivers up there that I like to see succeed, but not ahead of Zhou Guanyu. Of course, that is my driver for this year. As you see, everybody celebrating on the podium with Verstappen and Lewis Hamilton. And Hamilton, nice turnaround he's having here after retiring in the first 2 Grand Prix. He finished in Australia finally, and he's on the podium here today as well in Imola. So a fantastic result for him here now. But disappointment for us again in Imola. Going into Miami in the next one, we might have some upgrades on the way, which could benefit Haas. We, in my opinion, didn't even have a 7th place car, which Schumacher got. It's just things kind of worked out for us here. But overall, still a good weekend, promising, and hopefully in Miami we can step it up even further and bring some upgrades to the table as well. As always, if you guys enjoyed, you know what to do. We're going to head to the United States for a home race for Haas, and I'll see you guys next time. Have a great day, everybody.